Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom, and today I get to bring you Jon Gordon. He is awesome. One of the top three, I think, leadership experts in the world. I was talking to my son, TJ, he's 10, about Jon, and I was like, yeah, dude, he's, worked with the LA Dodgers and Miami Heat and like all these professional sports teams. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I have a cool job. I get to have conversations with these awesome people. So Jon is a husband, father, author. He has 28 books. And fun fact, I actually heard about him probably like 11 or 12 years ago. Not him, his book, because it was being passed around Beachbody like crazy, the Energy Bus. And I was like, oh, you're the guy that wrote all those books. Cool. And we've been in the same mastermind over this past year. He is just awesome guy. He has a new book that he launched called The One Truth that we'll talk about. We also talk about other stuff. I didn't prep him on like all the questions I was going to ask him, and some of them were a little personal. But I just want you to know he is awesome. Has a heart of gold. We talk about a lot of really valuable things in this episode. I definitely want you to check out his book. And like I said, like just great human. After we stopped recording the episode, we were on chatting and praying for each other. And I just love him, his wife, his daughter. They're incredible. So we're going to dive in. Let's do it. Hey, Jon, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rachel. Great to see you.
Great to see you. So let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Oh, I'm just a writer and speaker, and
Kind of a big deal.
yeah, just a writer and speaker, and get to work with a lot of different companies, organizations, sports teams, nonprofits, school districts. I speak on culture, leadership, developing a positive team, a strong team, a united team, a connected team, and also a lot around the area of mindset.
Cool. So you've been on some huge stages working with some incredible people. How did you get started in this? What's your journey like?
Wow. So I was miserable and negative. My wife threatened to leave me because I was so miserable and negative, and struggling with a lot of negativity, fear, anxiety, stress. I lost my job during the dot-com crash, didn't know how I was going to pay the bills, had two little kids. I was crumbling from the inside out, and my wife was really taking a lot of my negativity. I was blaming her for why our life was so bad, why I wasn't living up to my potential. And she said, if you don't change, we're over. We had this like one fight where I was just being a jerk and real negative. And she goes, if you don't change it, we're over. Like, I'm ready to leave right now. And I remember thinking, why am I so negative? Like, what am I born to do? Why am I here? And that's when writing and speaking came to me. I wanted to be more positive. I wanted to encourage others the way I needed to be encouraged. Because I used to be an encourager, I would say, and I had read books that I loved that encouraged me. And I remember thinking, I want to do that. And I think I'm supposed to do that, which is ironic given that I was so negative at that time. But I think we teach what we need to learn. And that began my journey of researching all the ways that I could be more positive and how I could be a better person, a better father, a better husband. And this was during the emerging field of positive psychology. So I'm researching all these ideas, and then I start practicing them. And I had a weekly positive tip that I started to share. Like I had one of the first email newsletters out there all the way back in 2002. So I'm sharing these ideas, these strategies. People are using them, and I started getting really good feedback from them. I'm thought, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this work and make a difference. And that led me ultimately to writing now 28 books and making a difference.
That's amazing. I remember I first heard about your book, The Energy Bus, when I was in Beachbody like 10 years ago. And then when we're in the same mastermind together, I'm like, oh, hey, I know one of your books. But now you've written 28, and the latest one is The One Truth. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, the Energy Bus came out in 2007, so that's the one you're talking about. And the
Yeah.
wild thing about that book is it's read more now and it's bought more now than ever. Like every year it grows. Every year it becomes more popular. I have so many new readers all the time, which is great. The book has sold over 3 million copies now around the world, something I could have never anticipated. And so it's wild that you heard it through Beachbody, and a lot of franchisors and franchisees use the book in all these different companies. So I meet people all the time that it's so funny. They're like, yeah, I read your book like when I was 20 years old, and now they're like 30 something years old. I read your book when I was in college. I read your book in my early 20s. And it's just wild to meet people along the way that read your book and benefited from it. And that led me to write more and more and more. And then now come full circle. I write this book called The One Truth, and there is a circle on the cover. And it's almost like The Energy Bus was like my first most significant book. And it really was like everything that up until that point in my life that I was meant to write. And it was meant to make a difference and impact people with positivity. And then we have this new book, The One Truth, that came to me. And I feel like it's like the perfect bookends in terms of my life and my work. And I really believe like The One Truth is like a new beginning for me. It's like where I'm really beginning with these new ideas, these new insights. Where the energy bus in many ways was revolutionary back then at the time, because no one was talking about energy vampires and positivity. Now it's old hat, but back then it was really new the way I was talking about it. And I also was talking about it in terms of people who drain your energy and how to enhance your energy and optimism and belief and loving your passengers, something that everyone talks about now in terms of love and how important love is for the workplace and so forth. So I feel like I was really ahead of my time with that. And that's why I think it's more popular now, because it finally caught up to that book. And now with The One Truth, it's all these new insights in terms of how to have a high state of mind instead of a low state of mind. It really explains mental health, mental well-being, high performance, like how thoughts work and how to really think at a higher level instead of a lower level, how to not let fear and stress and anxiety and worry keep you from what you're meant to be and what you're meant to do, and how to live your purpose and fullness by being one, connected instead of separate. And it's so funny because right now I just got back from Colorado last night. I've been on the road like crazy. I've been doing so many talks since August. It's like, wow, it's starting to catch up to me. Like I feel myself like exhausted right now and a little separate, right? And I know that I think more clearly when I'm feeling one and connected. But the more separate you feel, the thoughts don't flow as much. The words don't flow as much. But when you have this oneness moment, when you're in the zone, everything is flowing. We've all had those experiences. Well, it's not the circumstance. It's always our state of mind and how our state of mind allows us to respond to the circumstance. And so from a mental health standpoint, the more we move from oneness to separateness, we move from positive to negative. And all mental health disorders report feelings of being alone and isolated, disconnected, and separate. And so the more we move from oneness to separateness, we move from that positive to negative and have a lot more negative thoughts and a lot more fear, a lot more anxiety, a lot more worry, a lot more doubt. And that's how so many people are going through life these days. And this book is about how do we get to that high state of mind? How do we overcome all those negative thoughts? And I would say thoughts that don't come from us. Because when those thoughts come in, we believe they're from us, but they often sabotage us and they tell us lies about ourselves and our future. And who would ever choose to have a negative thought? And so this is about how to overcome that negativity with ultimately positivity, not fake positivity, but real positivity.
Cool. Can we dive into some of the frameworks you discussed in the book? Cool.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the TUNE framework.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Well, this is how to raise your state of mind and elevate your state of mind. So tune is trust. It begins with trust. And by the way, the reason why we talk about tune is because the brain is an antenna. And so you have 86 billion neurons in your brain. Every neuron has a transmitter and receiver. And so you are tuning into two main frequencies, a positive frequency or a negative frequency. And negative thoughts lower your state of mind and lower your frequency, and negative thoughts operate at a lower frequency. Positive thoughts operate at a higher frequency. And the more we tune into that positive, higher frequency, that elevates our state of mind, it elevates our mental health. We think at a higher level, and then we perform at a higher level. So tune is essential, just like that radio dial. Like, what are you tuning into? Or your playlist. What are you listening to on your playlist? Is it negative songs, negative words that evoke negative emotions and fear? Or is it positive words that encourage you, that uplift you? And tuning into the positive frequency is essential. So how do we do that? Well, We trust first and foremost instead of doubt. When doubt comes in, we trust. And I always say we trust in who? I believe in the creator of the universe. God wants us to trust in him. So often we're like, God, show me and I'll trust you. And God's like, no, trust me and I'll show you. And so trust is essential because when we feel fear, when we feel separate, we don't trust in God. And when you don't trust in God, you try to be God. And when you try to be God, you separate yourself from God. So a perfectionist, for instance, really doesn't trust in God. So they try to be perfect because they feel like they have to be God and they have to have their self-worth and their validation come through in their accomplishments. And their identity is tied to their performance and what they're doing and how they're succeeding. And it's really because they're trying to be God instead of trusting in God. Again, it's good to have healthy ambition where you know there's a God and it's not you, and you're humble and you're open to God's plan for your life. And you want to work really hard because God loves excellence. We're here to create excellence. The Christian shoemaker doesn't honor God by putting crosses on shoes. The Christian shoemaker honors God by making great shoes. And so you pursue this excellence. And as you do with faith, that's when you achieve your highest, I would say, ability, capability, and success along the way. So it starts with trust. Then there's you. Unite with love. Unite with God. You were created for connection. You were never meant to be separate. And so you are created to be connected to your creator. And so in that connection, that's where you find wholeness. That's where you find peace. It's where you find joy and love. I remember someone came to me recently, having a lot of negative thoughts. You know, they come in all the time and I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety and doubt and fear. I said, I bet you feel disconnected, you know, from God. You probably did at one point, but you probably feel disconnected now. They said, yeah, how'd you know? I said, well, if you were connected to God, you'd be feeling peace and joy and love. You would have a whole set of different feelings and emotions. The fact that you feel disconnected and separate is a sign that you're not feeling connected. And you can trace this back to all challenges and issues and mental health problems and the anxiety you feel, because the root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. So when you feel anxious, you feel separate and divided. You don't feel connected. So uniting with love and God is essential. And love is so important because love casts out fear. So fear keeps you from being your best. You're worried about the outcome. You're worried about your performance. You're worried about not doing well. You're worried about making mistakes and how it will look to you, to others, and how it will look to your identity. It goes back to identity. So we have all this fear. But the minute you focus on love, love casts out fear. And so the minute you focus on love, that fear dissipates. And then you can perform at your highest level. I remember I was writing The Carpenter and I had all this fear. I couldn't write. I had writer's block for the first time because I was thinking that everyone was going to say my best work was behind me.
Ooh.
And the energy bus and training camp, people were loving that book. And those books. And I was thinking, okay, like I'm going to write a piece of junk right now. This is going to be horrible. Like I had all these negative thoughts. And then I woke up one morning with the greatest gift. Love casts out fear. All I got to do is focus on loving the reader, loving writing, and loving the process. And if I do that, I will write something great. And that's what I did. Like I just focus on loving the process. And when you love the process, you'll love what the process produces. And it was incredible what happened. Like I wrote the book in 2.5 weeks. People
Wow.
say it's like my best book. And I wove it into the story. And then it became a central principle going forward. And then when I wrote The One Truth, I realized why. Of course, love is the highest vibration. It's the highest frequency. And when you're tuning into God's love, and God is love, and you experience that love, and that love now moves through you, you become this powerful force of love. And that love allows you to take on all the challenges, all the adversity, and then you have more confidence and you have more courage because of that love. Like, I'll tell you what, you have a mom and you put her son or daughter in danger, that mom, that love is going to have the most amazing courage to protect.
Yep.
And you'll see a mom like jump into action like no other. They become superwomen, right? They have that superpower because that is love. So unite with love. And then There's N, which is neutralize the negativity. Because even when you're loving, even when you're tuning into the positive and you're trusting, you're still gonna have negative thoughts come in because we're human. Because this is the journey of the ebb and flow of positive and negative. You're gonna tune into negative thoughts even when you're not trying to. They're just gonna come in. And so when they do, you got to neutralize the negativity. And my favorite piece of advice is from Dr. James Gills, the only person on the planet to complete 6 double Ironman triathlons. That's a double Ironman, which means you do an Ironman, a day later you do another one. And the last time he did it, he was 59 years old. And he was asked how he did it. And he said, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. He
Ooh,
said, if
that's
I
good.
listen, yeah, I love it. He said, if I listen, I hear all the fear, the negativity, the doubt, all the reasons why I can't finish this race. But if I talk to myself, I could feed myself with the words and the encouragement that I need to keep on moving forward. So we all really need to talk to ourselves instead of listen to ourselves to neutralize the negativity that's coming in. You know, my wife, Catherine, and when she has a negative thought, she'll be like, stop. And she'll replace it with a positive thought. And there's so much to speaking truth to the lies because negative thoughts are lies that will tell you things about yourself and your future that just aren't true. So don't believe the lies. Speak truth to the lies. And Rachel, this is the biggest challenge people have today. The negative thought comes in and we're believing the lies that they tell. And so we reinforce it. We speak it out loud. And then we feel guilt and shame for the thoughts in our head. And we beat ourselves up for those thoughts. A lot of young people don't realize that those thoughts are not coming from them. They think they are coming from them. So they feel guilt, they feel shame, they beat themselves up, they feel like something's wrong, they feel like they're broken. And I tell them and everyone, no, you're not broken. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing needs to be fixed. You're just experiencing the battle of your mind, of those two frequencies, positive and negative. And the more you tune into that positive and you neutralize the negativity, that elevates your mind. The more you see the truth, you then live the truth and you can speak truth to those lies. And there's just so much power in knowing this and understanding this. And once you realize this, you become like a Jedi in this world because you're like, oh, negative thought comes in. Oh, that's not for me. I'm not giving that energy. I'm not believing in that. No, I'm going to speak truth. I'm going to speak words of life, words of encouragement. And that leads to the E, which is elevate your thinking. So we know we need to elevate our thinking like on a daily basis because when we are thinking negative thoughts, it brings us down. It lowers our state of mind. Have you ever noticed that negative thinking is always associated like with overthinking? Like overthinking is always associated with negative thoughts.
Hmm.
We never say I have too many positive thoughts.
Yeah.
We never say I have too much gratitude, too much words of hope, too too much joy. Man, I have too much joy today. I'm just too positive today. We always say negative in terms of overthinking, clutter, all the thoughts, the racing mind, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, the doubt, all those negative thoughts. Those are lower level thoughts that cloud and clutter our brain and our mind. We got to elevate our thinking through prayer, through trust, through surrender, through gratitude. When you appreciate, you elevate your mood, your performance, and the people around you. And you elevate it by the words you say. As a woman thinks, you become, she becomes. As a man thinks, he becomes. The words you say become the life that you live. The thoughts you think, the words you say, that becomes the reality that you experience. So saying like, I am powerful, I am strong, I am a difference maker, I am here to impact this world. You start to say, I am, you start to speak that life. It's amazing how that will elevate your thinking throughout your life.
Yeah, I love that. I love how Catherine identified the thought and instead of just letting it run on autopilot, she's like, no, this is not this is not for me. Stop, get out of here, and then replace it. So I love that. Can we talk leadership? Because I know this is
Sure.
something that you talk about a ton, and as entrepreneurs, we're leading people and we're leading ourselves. So first, how do you lead yourself? What does that look like? Because for our listeners, you kicked butt at pickleball. How old are you?
I am 52.
Okay, you were running around the place like this college athlete, and I was just super impressed of how good of shape you are. So, how do you lead yourself like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? What does that process look like? And then how does that spill over to leading a team?
I'm glad you noticed that because I was playing against all these 30-year-olds.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, 20s, 30s, some early 40s. Yeah. And I did the same thing again. And I know I know it starts with your belief. Like, what do you believe? What do you think? And I think young. I really believe like I'm still in my 30s for some reason. I feel like I am. When I'm hanging out with 30-year-olds, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, like we're like the same. I don't realize that I'm 20 years older and have a lot more life experience because when I'm with them, I just feel young like them. So I really believe it starts with your mindset and your thoughts and what you think. And then leading yourself really is about the discipline with good habits. I would say actually great habits that become your life. Like what you do every day becomes the life that you live. And that's all about habits. But discipline is the result of devotion. We often focus on discipline, but if you're not devoted, then discipline is really hard. It's the devotion that drives discipline. And so it's about what am I devoted to? I'm devoted to a healthy life. I'm devoted to hopefully living a long time. I'm devoted to athletics and sports and playing sports. I'm devoted to competition and getting better. I'm devoting to habits that uplift my state of mind, taking a walk every day. And while I walk, I practice gratitude and I pray. And I believe that really keeps me young. I'm devoted to eating right. And the right foods are essential. Foods that nourish your brain. The brain is an antenna. So if you have a healthy brain, a healthy antenna, it's actually going to tune into more positive thoughts. You have an unhealthy antenna, it actually will tune into a lot of negative thoughts. That's why the foods that we're giving kids are essential. And so many kids are struggling because they're actually drinking too much sugar and eating too much sugar, which the author of Brain Energy, Chris Palmer, who's a psychiatrist at Harvard, he talks about how the mitochondria in our cells, body and brain, gets affected by too much sugar. Well, guess what? If the mitochondria are the energy factories of the cells in your brain, and those cells get affected, that means your antenna is not working properly and not lighting up all the areas, and there's not connection. And then you will have a lower frequency brain, a lower frequency antenna, and you will start to experience more and more negative thoughts. Does this make sense?
Mm,
No one's really talking about this. I'm telling
yeah.
you, this is going to be the future when people understand this and pay attention to this. And that's why people with post-traumatic brain injury, my friend was so positive and he had a brain injury and then all of a sudden became very negative, he said. Negative thoughts just started flooding in because he was now tuning into that lower frequency. It's wild when you think about it. So your life is the result of what you think, what you drink, and what you eat
Mhm.
and what you're putting into your body. That is essential. So I think leading yourself is these really great habits for health, but it's also leading yourself in terms of who you are determines how you lead. So are you a person of character? Are you a person of integrity? And the word integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole and complete. So a leader with integrity has wholeness and completeness. So there's alignment there. There's no gaps between what you say and what you do. And so a person who doesn't have integrity, a person who has a lot of gaps in their character, they're not leading themselves well. So then they can't lead others well. So it really does start with leading yourself well. And then that is all about leading others. So how do I feed myself each day to feed others? How do I lead myself in such a way that I have integrity that gives me a sense of power and moral authority that then allows other people to want to follow you? And this is something I realized just recently, being 52. I now have a lot of younger people coming to me and reaching out to me. And we have a Jon Gordon certification program now. And I think about that often. Like, if I haven't lived the right way over the last number of years, I would not have these people wanting to come and learn from me and grow from me and get certified by me. Like, my name is important. And if I don't have the right habits, the right discipline, the right lifestyle, if I'm not doing the right things, then I could actually ruin all of that. But people would not have wanted to come towards me and follow me if I didn't live the right way all these years. And it didn't happen overnight. 20 years ago, I had a lot less followers. 10 years ago, and a lot less followers. So it compounds over time. I was recently talking to John Maxwell. We were both speaking at an event. I said, John, when I came to visit you, you were in your 50s and I was in my 30s. And you were well known, but not like exceptionally well known. It wasn't like you are now, like as this icon who's now 76. And I said, you're in your 70s. I'm now in my 50s. I said, what's the key? He said, consistency compounds. Consistency compounds. Leading yourself, being consistent day in and day out compounds over time. And you know what? I talk a lot about culture. That goes to culture as well. You want to build a great culture. Consistency creates your culture. And your culture is created by the leadership. And it comes to life by the team and everyone in the organization. Everyone's creating the culture. But you've got to consistently create that culture. And it comes from who you are, what you stand for, how you live, your habits, and what you're doing on a daily basis. It's the mindset, it's the habits, it's the behaviors. Doing that consistently creates your culture. So this ties to everything. It starts with you first and how you then lead from the inside out to all those that you impact.
Amazing. Did you ever have like a crisis in leadership? And if so, how'd you handle it?
Well, in my own leadership, of course, like early in my marriage, again, very honest in my book, Relationship Grit that I wrote with Catherine. I would say it's more her book than my book, but it's our book in many ways. But she's been speaking a lot on this book and really making a big difference with it. But yeah, I mean, crisis of leadership because I wasn't a good leader. Like I was a horrible leader. I was a horrible husband. I was not a great father. I was a narcissist. I was self-focused. It was all about trying to be successful because I had so many issues and wounds. And what you'll find is that most leaders who mess up, most leaders who are not living to their fullest, most people who are not, they have a wound that needs to be healed. And we actually all have a wound. Some wounds are greater and bigger than others, but everyone has a wound that needs to be healed. But if you're living from your wound, that's going to lead to dysfunction. If you lead from your healing, that's going to lead to wholeness and health and power and strength and impact. Whereas the dysfunction is going to lead to more and more dysfunction and a lot of people who are dysfunctional because of your leadership. So it's really important that you address those wounds that you have. And so whenever you see a moral failure in the church or a leader who falls, it's always the result of some past wound that they have not addressed, that they have not healed. So I don't judge those people. I actually have compassion for those people. I know why they're doing it. The behavior is really bad, but the person is probably not bad. The person just needs some love. They need healing and they need to love themselves and they need to honestly connect with their creator to begin the healing process.
Yeah. What are some top challenges you see in leadership right now?
Oh, well, there's so many right now.
I know.
I mean, where do we begin?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest challenge right now is division. Like we're feeling more and more separate and divided than ever. And as a leader, your job is to unite. It's to connect. It's what the one truth is all about. That's why I tell leaders, read the one truth. It's like the antidote to today. What everyone's going through, the one truth is the solution and the antidote. Because you'll read this and you'll go, oh, so and so separate. Oh, yeah, we're separate. Oh, this is happening. We're divided here. And your job as a leader is to create connection. It's to bring people into the fold. It's to rally people. It's to connect. It's to create more commitment. But you'll never have commitment without connection. It's about making sure that you're communicating well. Because if you don't communicate and there's a breakdown in communication, where there's a void, negativity will fill it. So you're going to get more and more negativity as a result of the voids that you have. So as a leader, where's our communication gaps? Where's our connection gaps? Where's our commitment gaps? Am I showing that I care enough? Am I practicing love and accountability? I wrote a book, The Power of Positive Leadership, and it's really about the framework for great leadership. Even though it's positive leadership, it's great leadership. And being a positive leader is essential to be a great leader because as a positive leader, you got to have the right mindset to be a great leader. As a positive leader, you develop relationships with your teams. As a positive leader, you're demanding but not demeaning. As a positive leader, you believe the best is yet to come. So you take the actions necessary to create the best outcome. And you practice love and accountability. I love you, but I'm going to hold you accountable to our culture, to our principles, to our values. And if you're not living up to them, if you don't live up to the standard, then I'm going to make sure that one, I challenge you. And if you don't meet that challenge and you don't meet the standard, then I may have to let you go. But I'm going to love you along the way. And even if I let you go, it's not like I'm going to hate you, but I just can't have you on the team because one person can't make a team, but one person can break a team.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really key principles that I share for leadership that are essential to being a great leader. And it's about making sure that you address the negativity on your team and address the division. So that's what leaders need to do today. Biggest challenges, division and negativity. How do I address both so that my team could work together to perform at our highest level? That's the key.
Yeah. Who's a leader that inspires you and
Oh,
why?
Alan Mulally is one of them. He turned around Ford and Boeing both. Ford during the Great Recession, they were losing $14 billion. And he turned them around in a few years. It was one of the greatest leadership feats in history. Saved the company, thousands of jobs,
Wow.
impacted communities and families. And I interviewed him for the Power of Positive Leadership book.
Mm-hmm.
And he defined his leadership style as positive leadership. That's why I wanted to interview him, because I read a Wall Street Journal article where he defined his leadership as that style. I'm like, that's it. He is the embodiment, the epitome of positive leadership. And he had a working together management system. So I would say interviewing him for that book was like getting an MBA, because I was talking to one of the greatest leaders ever in history. Actually, it's not, a small thing to say that. Like in history, what he accomplished was just incredible. And he did it with love and accountability, with optimism and belief, addressing and taking on the negativity, being more positive than the negativity he faced. A lot of people on his team did not believe, but he believed, and he got his team to believe. So he really inspired me in many ways. Donna Orander, I wrote about in the book as well. Donna Orander turned around the WNBA with her optimism and her belief. So she's another really great leader that I admire and how she did it.
Yeah. Can we talk about your faith journey and kind of what that's looked like?
Yeah, my faith journey has just been something that guides everything that I do.
Yeah.
It's who I am. It's not something where I try to preach to people that they should believe what I believe, but I do try to share the truth of my faith. And in the One Truth, for instance, there's a faith element, but not from a faith perspective, but from a truth perspective. Because faith and truth are actually one and the same when you study it. And science is the search for truth. Well, if we believe the scriptures are truth, which they are, science will lead to the scriptures being proved right. And more we are seeing that over and over again with things that were like conundrums or we didn't believe or didn't understand. We're starting to see how things are making more and more sense. Just like Romans 8:5-6. A mind governed by the flesh leads to death. A mind governed by the spirit leads to life and peace.
Yeah.
If your mind is being governed by the flesh, it leads to dysfunction. Things in this world will lead to dysfunction. But if you pray and you surrender and you trust and you spend time with the creator of the universe and you connect with that creator, you're going to have a lot more health. You're going to be healthier. You're going to be holier. You're going to be happier as a result of that connection and that oneness.
Yeah.
So it just makes so much sense when you understand that there's a separation, and the whole story of the New Testament is actually about bringing people back into oneness and connection. And that's the whole New Testament. It's all about being one and connected. And there's so much power in understanding that. And the truth doesn't need the Bible to exist. The truth exists without the Bible and actually existed before the Bible. But the Bible explains, right, and shares and is the truth that exists. So when you read it, the truth comes alive. And the reason why when you read it, it resonates because the truth is already written in your heart. It's already written in your soul. So it resonates because you're now reading something that you already know to be true. Now, some people may read it and not resonate with it. It just means that they've got a lot of stuff that's clouding them in their life and they're not able to connect with it at that point. It's amazing how at one point in my life, I couldn't even read it and understand it. And now I'm able to read it and it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you are on the journey. And the more you get closer to the truth, the more the truth makes more sense.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. What's your writing process like? You've written 28 books, sold millions of copies. One book you wrote in 2.5 weeks. So what does that look like?
Yeah, most of the books take about 3.5 to 4 weeks to write.
Wow.
It's never taken longer than 4 weeks. So I would say 3 to 4 weeks. And what I do is I write usually in December, and I get up in the morning and I write. And then after I write, I go take a walk and I pray. And I come back, I get some new ideas from the prayer. It's pretty cool how that happens.
Yeah.
God will give me all these ideas. I'm living proof that there's something greater than us that's giving us ideas.
Hmm.
And then I come back, I write some more. And then after that, I'm done for the day. At night, before I go to bed, I read what I wrote. I edit it a little bit. That gives me like a fresh perspective, a new ideas start to come. I start thinking of new things. I write them down on a piece of paper. So when I get up in the morning, I now have these fresh ideas that I start to implement and begin anew. And I do that day in and day out until the book is done.
Ooh, that's good. That's awesome. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
It's everything. It means that I've lived the life that I was created to live. David Jeremiah says success is the fulfillment of God's plan for your life.
Hmm.
And I believe that all of our plans include making an impact, making a difference. We were created for connection with others, to impact others. We weren't meant to just live for ourselves.
Yeah.
So to make an impact means that I did what I was born to do. And it means that my words, the books I wrote, the talks I've given have impacted people in their lives, in their mindsets, in their families, in their teams, in their organizations. When I get a young man reach out to me that said that my book impacted him on his journey, that means everything. When I get a couple that says relationship grit allowed them to stay married and kept them
Wow.
married, that means everything. When I get an email today from a leader who just read my book for the first time, and when he was talking about me, a young man who works for him came in and said, "Oh man, I read his book in college and football, and man, I love that book. We went on a winning streak because of that book. We had the best season ever because of that." And then he just emailed me that, like having no idea. Like that is what impact means to me. It means legacy.
Mm.
And what is a legacy?
Mm.
Lives touched, stories told.
Mm.
That's a legacy. We talk about Jesus, his legacy, lives touched, stories told, and we're still telling those stories. So, am I giving people good stories to tell? And am I making an impact along the way? So that's what it looks like.
Ooh, so good. Well, we'll put the link to the One Truth in the description. Where can we connect with you?
Oh, JonGordon.com, JonGordon.com, at JonGordon11 on Instagram or Twitter. Connect with me there. I love hearing from people and just, yeah, read the One Truth. I've got a lot of free resources on my website too. We got a 7-step positivity plan that you can take, and it allows you to actually implement one thing each day to develop more positivity in your life. So just go to JonGordon.com for that free plan.
Cool.
Jon Gordon.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the description. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show.
Hey Rachel, thanks so much, and thanks for allowing me to talk and actually feel a lot more energized after talking. That's what impact
Yes.
is all about, right? Making a difference. You
Yep.
energize others, and you get energized.
Yep. I love it.